Two families were planning to spend a perfect Sunday. One was driving home with their children after a weekend camping trip, while the other was heading out for a traditional Italian dinner. At 1:35 p.m., their plans collided at 168 miles per hour. Only one 5-year-old boy survived. The official version seemed simple. Diana Schuler, a 36-year-old mother, was drunk behind the wheel. She drove into oncoming traffic and collided with another car. The police recorded a critical blood alcohol level and found traces of marijuana. The case was closed as a tragic drunk driving accident. But behind these facts lay a story that divided two families, spawned years of legal battles, and left many questions unanswered. How did a successful businesswoman and caring mother become a killer on the road? Did her loved ones know about her problems? And most importantly, was Diana's family honest with the police about who she really was? This tragedy exposed the dark side of the American dream. Behind the facade of a perfect family life, destructive secrets can lurk. Secrets that, on one fateful day, come to light with catastrophic. To her colleagues and neighbors, Diana Schuler was the epitome of a successful working mother. A finance manager at the telecommunications company Cablevision, she earned a good salary and ran a spotless household. Her Long Island home was immaculate. Her children were always well-groomed, and the family car was sparkling clean. Acquaintances described her as a reliable person. She was organized, punctual, and always ready to help with the children or family matters. She never had any problems with the law, and her driving record was spotless. Her colleagues did not notice any signs of addiction, and her neighbors did not complain about any strange behavior. This picture began to crack only after the tragedy. A few months later, Diana's daughter-in-law, Jay Schuler, revealed what the family had been hiding for years. Diana regularly used marijuana and alcohol. This was no secret to some relatives, but they did not perceive her habits as a serious problem. Diana was what experts call a functional alcoholic. She knew how to drink while remaining productive and not arousing suspicion from those around her. Her addiction remained invisible to the outside world. No arrests, no conflicts, no complaints. This ability to hide her problem allowed her to teeter on the edge of the abyss for years. On the day of the tragedy, that balance was broken. At the scene of the accident, investigators found a broken bottle of vodka containing almost 2 liters. Diana's body contained the equivalent of 10 standard servings of alcohol consumed in a short period of time. A woman, who seemed to be the epitome of responsibility, found herself in a state where most people lose their minds. 8-year-old Emma Hans was the leader of her 3 sisters. Responsible beyond her years, she loved the theater and was preparing for a school play. The day before the trip, her mother, Jackie, discussed buying tickets for the fall performance with Diana. Emma was looking forward to the new school year and the opportunity to show off her acting skills. 7-year-old Allison was the life of the party. Cheerful and energetic, she knew how to make people laugh and infected everyone with her optimism. Her younger sister, 5-year-old Kate, was quiet and gentle, following her older sisters everywhere and imitating them in everything they did. The girls loved family trips, especially trips to the countryside, where they could explore the woods and play by the water. In another car was a family with their own traditions. 81-year-old Michael Bastardi was the patriarch of a large Italian family in Yonkers. His 42-year-old son, Guy, worked in construction and was known for his sense of humor. Their friend, Dan Longo, had become almost a member of the family over many years of friendship. They were on their way to their traditional Sunday dinner in Yorktown Heights. These gatherings were a sacred ritual for the Bastardi family. Pasta, wine, conversation around a large table. Michael especially cherished these moments when the whole family was together. For them, it was not just dinner, but a way to maintain family ties. Also in the minivan were Diana's 2-year-old daughter, Erin Schuler, and her 5-year-old son, Brian. Erin was too young to understand what was happening. Brian was the only survivor in the car, but the price of survival was high. Severe brain damage and vision loss changed his life forever. All these people were making plans, dreaming of the future, enjoying their Sunday. The children were thinking about the upcoming school year, and the adults were planning vacations and family celebrations. No one suspected that Sunday, July 26th, would be the last day of their lives. Sunday morning, July 26th, began as the perfect end to a family weekend. At a campground on Lake Hunter, the Schuler family was packing up after 2 days in the great outdoors. The weather was sunny, the children were happy, and the adults were rested. The campground owner later told police that everyone looked healthy and happy when they said goodbye in the morning. The route home was simple. Daniel Schuler loaded the family truck with luggage and a boat trailer to drive straight home. Diana took the 5 children in a red Ford Windstar minivan borrowed from her brother Warren. The plan was to stop for breakfast for the children and then drive home. At McDonald's around 9:30 a.m., nothing foreshadowed trouble. Diana bought food for the children and limited herself to coffee and orange juice. Surveillance cameras recorded her usual behavior, no signs of intoxication or anything unusual. The children played in the play area, and the family continued on their way in good spirits. The first crack appeared at a gas station at 10:46 a.m. Diana went into the store looking for some painkillers, but couldn't find what she needed and left empty-handed. She may have had a headache or toothache. She still looked normal on the camera footage, but something was already starting to go wrong. Around 11 a.m., drivers began calling emergency services. The red minivan began to drive aggressively, cutting off other cars and flashing its lights randomly. Diana was clearly losing control, but the scattered calls prevented the police from pinpointing her location and intercepting her. At 11:37, the last normal conversation took place. Diana called Jackie Hands and reported a slight delay due to traffic. Jackie asked about tickets for Emma's school play. The conversation was completely normal, with no indication of any problems. But that was the last time Diana sounded like her usual self. Between 11:37 and noon, something critical happened. It was probably then that Diana started drinking from the bottle of vodka she had in her car. By the end of that time, she had turned from a caring aunt into a deadly threat to everyone around her. Around 11:45, witnesses saw the minivan pull over to the side of the road. Diana got out, bent over, and was clearly nauseous. The children remained in the car and probably began to realize that something was seriously wrong with their aunt. None of the passers-by had time to approach her. She quickly got back behind the wheel and drove on. At 12:58, the phone rang, and it changed everything. Jackie Hands heard a voice on the other end that she barely recognized. Diana was slurring her words, and her speech was incoherent. Children could be heard crying in the background. The conversation lasted 2 agonizing minutes. Then the line went dead. Alarmed, Jackie immediately contacted her husband. Warren Hans called his sister back and found her on the side of the Tappan Zee Bridge. Diana was still talking nonsense and even called him by the wrong name. Then 8-year-old Emma came to the phone. "Dad, something's wrong with Aunt Diana," the girl said in a trembling voice. "She can't see." The horror in the child's simple words was palpable. Emma understood that the adult on whom her safety depended was no longer in control of the situation. Warren asked his daughter to read the road signs so he could figure out where they were. He told Diana not to move and got in the car. It was about an hour's drive. In his panic, he didn't think to call the police, hoping he could get there himself. That fateful decision cost 8 people their lives. Diana didn't listen. She left her cell phone on the concrete barrier by the road, as if cutting off her last link to reality. She put the children back in the car and continued driving, but now in the wrong direction. Her condition was rapidly deteriorating. At 1:33 p.m., the red minivan approached the exit ramp for the Taconic State Parkway. There were several bright "no entry" and one-way signs in front of Diana, but she ignored them all. The minivan entered the highway and began traveling in the oncoming lane at 85 miles per hour. The drivers of oncoming vehicles found themselves in a nightmare situation. They saw the approaching car, realized the inevitability of the crash, but could do nothing. Cars pulled over to the side of the road. Drivers honked their horns and flashed their headlights. More than a dozen people called emergency services. Diana drove straight ahead, ignoring the signals and making no attempt to turn or brake. She was close to losing consciousness, but the car continued to speed forward. The children in the car were probably screaming in terror, but nothing could stop the inevitable. At 1:35 p.m., exactly 2 minutes after entering the oncoming lane, the minivan collided head-on with a Chevrolet Trailblazer SUV. The impact was so powerful that the Trailblazer was thrown into a third car. Traffic on the northbound lane came to a standstill. New York State Police arrived at the scene within minutes, but there was nothing they could do to help. 7 people died instantly, and an 8th died on the way to the hospital. Only 5-year-old Brian Schuler survived, suffering injuries that would change his life forever. Experienced investigators immediately realized that this was no ordinary accident. A broken 1.75-liter bottle of Absolute vodka lay in the wrecked minivan. The smell of alcohol was noticeable despite the destruction. The nature of the collision, the trajectory of the vehicles, and witness statements all pointed to the driver being seriously intoxicated. Toxicological analysis confirmed the worst suspicions. Diana's blood alcohol level was 0.19%, 2.4 times the legal limit. 6 grams of unabsorbed alcohol were found in her stomach, indicating that she had recently consumed a huge dose. This is equivalent to 10 standard servings of vodka or beer drunk in a short period of time. The analysis also showed traces of marijuana. Experts determined that the drug had been consumed 15 to 60 minutes before the accident. The picture that emerged was of a person who, in the last hours of her life, had taken a lethal combination of alcohol and drugs, and then got behind the wheel with 5 children. A medical expert conducted a thorough autopsy, but found no illnesses that could explain Diana's behavior. There were no signs of stroke, heart attack, aneurysm, or other acute conditions. A dentist confirmed that she had no serious dental problems that could have caused severe pain. Investigators reconstructed Diana's last hours using CCTV footage and witness statements. The picture that emerged was frightening. At McDonald's in the gas station, she appeared completely normal. But between 11:30 a.m. and 1 p.m., she turned into an uncontrollable danger, speeding down the road at 85 miles per hour. The police classified the case as manslaughter. Diana Schuler, while heavily intoxicated with alcohol and drugs, knowingly got behind the wheel and caused the deaths of 8 people, including herself. The case was formally closed, but for the victims' families, the real story was just beginning. When the toxicology results came back on August 4, 2009, Diana's husband's reaction was immediate and categorical. Daniel Schuler refused to believe that his wife was drunk behind the wheel. At a press conference on August 8th, he told reporters, Diana was a responsible mother. She would never have endangered her children. The family put forward alternative explanations for the tragedy. Perhaps Diana had a severe tooth abscess and drank vodka to numb the pain, misjudging the dose. Or she suffered a stroke that led to disorientation and loss of vision. Daniel hired private investigator Tom Ruskin for $30,000 to prove his wife's innocence. Raskin and the Schuler family appeared on national television shows, including Larry King and Oprah Winfrey. They demanded that all tests be redone and planned to exhume the body for a second autopsy. Daniel insisted that the toxicology results were wrong and that the samples could have been mixed up in the lab. The Bastardi family reacted to these explanations with fury. Michael Bastardi Jr., who lost his father and brother, did not hide his outrage. In an interview with ABC News, he called Diana's actions murder and directly accused Daniel. He played a role in this tragedy. He must admit the facts. The Bastardi family's lawyer demanded that Daniel testify under oath. They suspected that he knew about his wife's alcohol problems, but had concealed this from the police. When Daniel's lawyer refused to answer questions about his own possible drug use, this was taken as an indirect admission of problems in the family. The premiere of the HBO documentary, There's Something Wrong with Aunt Diane, in July 2011, only intensified the confrontation. On the same day, Daniel filed a lawsuit against the state of New York and Warren Hance, claiming that poor road design contributed to the accident. The Bastardi family called the move outrageous and insulting to the memory of the victims. The turning point came in November 2009. Diana's sister-in-law, Jay Schuler, decided to reveal what the family had been hiding for months. In an interview with the New York Times, she admitted that Diana smoked marijuana almost daily and regularly drank alcohol to relax after work. This revelation shattered the myth of the perfect mother and wife. It turns out that some family members knew about Diana's habits, but did not consider them a serious problem. Marijuana use was no secret in the family, Jay explained. Publicly, everyone supported the image of a responsible woman, but within the family, there was a completely different reality. Private investigator Raskind, who initially defended Daniel's version, began to change his position. His own investigation found no evidence of error in the toxicology reports. Medical experts, one after another, refuted the family's alternative theories. A dentist confirmed that there were no dental problems, and an autopsy ruled out stroke. Raskin complained more and more that Daniel and Jay had stopped answering his calls. Plans to exhume the body never got off the ground. The samples were never retested. By 2025, even Raskin admitted in an interview with People that Diana had been drunk, although he still considered it a mystery how she ended up in the oncoming lane. The Schuler family gradually fell silent. Alternative medical explanations were not scientifically confirmed. Daniel stopped giving interviews after the negative reaction to his lawsuit in 2011. The truth was too painful to admit publicly. On August 18, 2009, the Westchester County District Attorney announced a decision that disappointed many. No criminal charges would be filed. The reason was formally correct, but morally unsatisfactory. Diana Schuler died in an accident. Under New York law, the dead cannot be tried, no matter how serious their crimes. The police classified the accident as manslaughter, but the absence of a living suspect made a criminal case pointless. The only hope for justice remained in the civil courts, where less stringent standards of proof apply. The Bastardi family was the first to file a lawsuit against the estate of Diana and Warren Hance as the owner of the minivan. They sought compensation for willful and reckless conduct that led to the deaths of 3 loved ones. Jackie Hance filed her own lawsuit in July 2011, claiming that her daughters had experienced horror and fear of imminent death. All civil cases were settled by July 2014 under strict confidentiality. The exact amounts of the settlements were never disclosed. Diana's estate probably had limited resources, which led to symbolic compensation that the parties preferred to keep secret. Daniel's absurd lawsuit against the state, in which he blamed poor road design for his wife's death, was either withdrawn or settled without payment. Even the detective he hired publicly condemned the decision. Arguments about insufficient signage seemed unconvincing in light of clear evidence that Diana was dead drunk. 16 years later, the road system remains virtually unchanged. Several additional no-entry signs were added to the Taconic State Parkway, but no major measures were taken against oncoming traffic. Head-on collisions remain rare, less than 1% of all accidents, but most of them involve alcohol and are often fatal. Brian Schuler, the only survivor of the minivan, is now a young man in his 20s. He lives with the effects of a traumatic brain injury and vision impairment. Danielle received $100,000 from the makers of the HBO documentary, which went into a trust fund for her son. Nothing is publicly known about Brian's current condition. The victims are remembered in different ways. Warren and Jackie Hance created the Hance Family Foundation, which supports children's programs in memory of Emma, Allison, and Kate. Jackie wrote a book, I'll See You Again, about her journey through grief to acceptance. The Bastardi family chose more private ways to honor their loved ones. The main mystery remains unsolved. Why did Diana's family so stubbornly deny the irrefutable facts? The toxicology reports were unequivocal, medical alternatives were ruled out, and witness testimony was clear. But Daniel spent years spending money on pointless investigations and filing absurd lawsuits. Perhaps he really did not know the extent of his wife's addiction. Functional alcoholics are masters at hiding their problems, even from their closest relatives. Or perhaps he knew but could not admit his own role, his inability to recognize the danger in time and intervene. Diana Schuler's story exposed a frightening reality. Behind a facade of prosperity, destructive secrets can lurk. It showed how addiction can remain invisible for years until it leads to disaster, and it demonstrated the destructive power of denial, which prevents people from acknowledging the truth, even in the face of tragedy. Today, cars still speed down the Taconic State Parkway at the same speed Diana was traveling in the final moments of her life. But the 8 people who lost their lives here serve as a reminder of the fragility of life and how one wrong decision can destroy many lives in a matter of seconds.